What is good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode brought to you by the League FFB. Today, we are going to be talking about 5 buys that I'm currently targeting in my fantasy football leagues. Maybe some guys who had some disappointing seasons, or maybe have some better future outlook just due to free agency or something that is coming up this summer. These are all players that I would be buying right now before people start catching on to the good news that could happen for some of these players. But with that being said, I don't want to waste too much more time. Let's hop right into today's video and let's start talking about these buys. All right, so the first player I want to talk about in today's video is going to be Bryant Thomas Jr., wide receiver for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, currently valued as Keep Trade Cuts wide receiver 19. As a first-round pick, Bryant Thomas Jr. exploded in his rookie season with 87 receptions on 130 targets for 1,282 yards and 10 touchdowns. Now, he ranked second in Dominator rating at 43.6%, sixth in unrealized air yards at 822 yards, and fifth in deep targets with 28, averaging 15.5 PPR points per game, while finishing as the wide receiver 14 overall, despite some limited early season opportunities. But 2025 was far less appealing as Bryant Thomas Jr. struggled with wrist and shoulder injuries, as well as added target competition, and posted 48 receptions on 88 targets for 707 yards and 2 touchdowns. The good news is, as the year went on and Bryant Thomas Jr. got healthier, his target share and air yard share saw an increase. However, some of this was due to guys like Travis Hunter and Brenton Strange missing time due to injuries of their own. So now that we've had 2 different stories on 2 different seasons, it's kind of hard to pin how to value Bryant Thomas Jr., but I'm still buying into the advanced metrics and efficiency that we've seen from him so far. Bryant Thomas Jr. has posted an elite in-route win rate of 92.9%, which was first in the NFL in his early career, a target separation of 2.75 yards, which was 9th, as well as high yards per target and yak per reception numbers as a rookie and as a sophomore. Now, we've seen him get targeted on 21 to 30% of his routes on average with a 155.2 QBR when targeted, further showing that he has this ability and this reliability when he is targeted in that intermediate and deep area for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, with a current KTC evaluation of wide receiver 19, like I said, and a projected trade market value in that 105 to 109 range, I am more than comfortable sending that type of value for a guy like Bryant Thomas Jr., especially if you're uneasy of some of the talent here in this 2026 rookie class, and especially if you're a believer in Bryant Thomas Jr. and Liam Cohen, maybe figuring out a little bit more in their second year working together. Let's move on to another wide receiver that I'm buying. It's going to be Zay Flowers, wide receiver for the Baltimore Ravens, and he's actually my favorite buy here in today's video, currently valued as the wide receiver 27 over on Keep Trade Cut. Now, at just 25 years old, we have now seen Flowers deliver 3 very strong seasons with an increasing production over the start of his NFL career. 2023, 77 receptions on 108 targets for 858 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns. A step up in 2024, 74 receptions on 116 targets for 1,059 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns. And then this year being the best year of his career so far, another step forward. 86 receptions on 118 targets for 1,211 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns. Now, coming out of his 2025 season, Zay posted an 81.6 PFF receiving grade, which was 15th amongst the wide receivers, with 5.5 yards after the catch per reception, which was 12th overall, 14.1 yards per reception, and an average depth of target of 10.1. He also produced 2.53 yards per route run on 479 routes and a 24.4% targets per route run on 117 targets, further proving that he is emerging as an efficient alpha in this Baltimore offense. Flowers also ranked top 10 amongst wide receivers in receptions, 8th overall, receiving yards, 6th overall, and targets, 15th overall in 2025, with an overall PFF grade of 79.6, which was 18th amongst the wide receivers and had very minimal drops with just 5 of those. He also posted a 113.6 passer rating, 12th best when targeted as the wide receiver, further proving his reliability as a receiving threat in this offense. Now, Keep Trade Cut has him valued as the wide receiver 27 with the current pick value in that 2026 108 to 112 range, which I would be more than okay giving up considering the lack of depth in this year's draft class and the proven production that we've seen from Flowers so far over the last few seasons. Now, with Harbaugh out of the building, we could see a new head coach come in and increase the passing volume in Baltimore, which has been one of the lowest over the last couple of seasons. And if that were to happen, we could see a true breakout from Zay Flowers in 2026 because the underlying metrics are actually more similar to guys like Puka Nacua and Jackson Smith and Jigba Chuba, so we just need to see that passing volume increase in Baltimore for Zay Flowers to have that full-on breakout. Let's talk about a quarterback that I'm buying. I'm going to go over to Jared Goff, quarterback for the Detroit Lions, currently the quarterback 20 on Keep Trade Cut, and at 31 years old, Goff doesn't have the same youth appeal that some of the other quarterbacks have in Dynasty, but he has still maintained top-tier production over the last few seasons. He's coming off of a 2025 season where Goff threw for 4,564 passing yards and 34 passing touchdowns while averaging 17.9 fantasy points per game. Now, there's no reason why Goff can't continue to do so as long as the Lions keep their core of Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, Sam Laporta, and Jahmyr Gibbs intact. Goff has been an efficient playmaker for the Lions over the last few seasons with a low turnover-worthy play rate of 0.8% from clean pockets and 5.7% when under pressure, and plays behind one of the best offensive lines in football. He also ranked top 10 in key categories like passing yards, attempts, completions, passing touchdowns, and true passer rating. With a current positional rank of quarterback 20 on Keep Trade Cut, Goff is a perfect buy candidate in a weak quarterback class for Dynasty teams that are looking for a quarterback 2 in their Superflex formats. Now, he's currently being valued in that 108 to 112 pick range, and I'd be more than comfortable moving that range up to the 106 range after that tier of Mendoza, Lemon, Tate, and Tyson if I truly am a quarterback 2 away from contending. And while Goff is probably the least exciting and the oldest guy on the list of buys today, he probably has one of the safest floors and one of the more stable offenses in football, and he's probably going to give you a 2 to 3 year window here, similar to what Dak Prescott has given you over the last couple of seasons, where he's just going to continue producing and he's going to be undervalued every single season. So he's a player that I'm definitely buying right now if I am a contending roster. Now, I also have a tight end on this list. We're going to talk about Kyle Pitts for the Atlanta Falcons, currently Keep Trade Cuts tight end 8, and Kyle Pitts holds the record for the first rookie tight end with a 1,000-yard season in 2021 and the most fantasy points by a rookie tight end in over 30 years, the third most all time, while being one of only 2 players with 100+ targets and just 1 touchdown that season. Now, that feels like it was over a decade ago, but at age 25, he's the only tight end to start his career with 3 consecutive 18+% target share seasons, further proving he is capable of sustaining volume as a receiving threat in his offense. Now, in 2025, Pitts paced for 1.55 yards per route run, his highest since 2022, 0.29 missed tackles forced per reception, which was a career high, 5.71 yards after the catch per reception, which was the second highest of his career, 5.86 yards after contact, tied for the highest of his career, and a 0.79 separation score, and a 10.5% route win rate, demonstrating a return to elite form post-injury. That's a lot of stuff just to tell you Kyle Pitts is coming off of one of the best seasons of his career. Now, he also posted top 5 numbers in targets with 118 in 2025, and a target share at 22.7%, as well as top 5 numbers in receptions, receiving yards, routes run, pass snaps, air yards share, and yards after the catch. And Pitts is a free agent this summer, so you also get some unrealized upside here because there's a chance a team pays him some big money to come in and be a true playmaker for their offense, and even if nobody does, he would get to come back to Atlanta and play for a new head coach and play caller in Kevin Stefanski, who has featured tight ends in his offenses before. Now, with a current value of tight end 8 on Keep Trade Cut, they have him with the pick value between 110 and the 202, but I think there's a strong argument that you could go as far as to offering that 107 to get Kyle Pitts in a piece in your Dynasty Fantasy Football League and be happy with the return here in this 2026 class. Now, the good thing about Kyle Pitts is I think he's a strong buy for either a rebuilding team or a contending piece, depending on your roster, depending on the window that you are playing in, because we've seen both production and youth from Kyle Pitts right now. So he is a player, no matter the window that you are in, I am definitely buying, and he's one of my favorite buys right now because he could be entering a window here where he plays some of the best football of his career and truly starts entering his prime here in 2026. Now, let's move on to my last and final buy. I'm going to move on to the running back position. Let's talk Kenneth Walker III for the Seattle Seahawks, who's currently Keep Trade Cuts running back 20. Now, Kenneth Walker is finishing up the 2025 season where he had 221 carries, 1,027 rushing yards, and 5 rushing touchdowns, and all of this was while sharing a backfield with running mate Zach Charbonnet. Walker's been a running back that's always excelled in big plays with a career 5.7 yards per carry, an elite explosive rush rate, 8th highest amongst running backs with 100+ attempts over the last 2 seasons, and forces missed tackles at a high rate. Walker has also produced an 85+ PFF rushing grade in every single season since college, including the second best rushing grade in the league in 2024. It's also worth noting that Walker has been evolving as a receiver over the last couple of seasons here for the Seahawks, pacing for 51 receptions on 68 targets in 2024 with a 13.8% target share and the 11th most routes run at the running back position, and posting his second best receiving season in 2024 2025 with 31 receptions for 282 receiving yards. Now, the big thing with Walker, however, is the combination of an ACL injury to Zach Charbonnet, the Seahawks playoff run here in 2025, and Walker's looming contract extension that is going to happen later this summer. The way that it currently sits, I would not be surprised to see Kenneth Walker return to Seattle in 2026 under a new contract, with Zach Charbonnet likely missing some time, which would mean familiarity for Walker in a good offense with an increased workload to start the year. Now, the added variable of this is that because Seattle could choose to re-sign Walker in this summer's free agent cycle, that would mean that Charbonnet could be the one who is actually out of favor in Seattle in 2027 when his contract is up, because I don't know if they're going to pay two running backs after just paying Walker the summer before. Now, on the other side, that's a lot of speculation. If a team goes out and tries to overpay for Kenneth Walker and he does leave Seattle, you know you're at least getting a bell cow running back in a new offense. So there's very few ways for Walker to lose value at his current KTC ranking of running back 20, but he's a player that people need to move on now rather than later in the spring, with his current projected trade market being estimated in that 110 to 202 range on Keep Trade Cut. I would buy at that price all day long, every single day. And if your league is savvy and understands the values of this year's draft class, I'd be willing to even move up that draft pick to the 107, the 108 range in draft capital if I truly am a running back away from competing for a title in 2026, because I do like Kenneth Walker more than the running back 2 in this class, which could be anybody's pick of Jonah Coleman, Emmett Johnson, you name it. There's a ton of other guys. Kenneth Walker would be the RB2 in this class behind Jeremiah Love, so I'm more than comfortable moving that draft pick up if you need a running back here in 2026. All right, folks, so there you have it. That is 5 players that I am buying on my Dynasty Fantasy Football teams in my leagues as we get into the early part of the NFL offseason. As always, if you guys found something today informative, entertaining, actionable, do me the favor, hit that like button. Also, make sure you guys are subscribed. We're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers this summer. Hopefully, you guys are joined along for the ride so we can get to that milestone and can keep pumping out this Dynasty Fantasy Football content. Also, make sure you go join our free Discord. We do have a free Discord linked in the description, helping you guys with those Dynasty Fantasy Football teams 24/7, 365. But with all of that being said, I have nothing else for you guys today. I will see you on the next episode where we talk some sells on the other side of the spectrum. But until then, peace out.